Andy, close to 18 years old, and Piper are step-siblings. Piper being visually impaired and actively seeking acceptance from her peers, which proved to be an uphill task, and Andy was there to shelter her from bullying without any explanation of the absence of Piper's mother. The pair will be soon orphaned when their father, who was in the midst of a cancer treatment, will pass on suddenly during a shower. The distraught young siblings will be assigned by social service to put under the care of Laura, an experienced counselor who had dealt with troubled children in her professional life. It felt like things would be going back on track for Piper, especially Andy was striving to be her legal guardian once he turned 18. Everything would go spiraling down the moment the pair hit the curb of Laura's secluded abode. Aussie twin filmmakers Danny and Michael Philippou follow-up to 2023 Talk to Me was another exemplary case of elevated horror that film distributor A24 was obsessed with. For myself, I would put Bring Her Back alongside with Talk to Me and Ari Aster Hereditary as a family drama with young characters being entrapped in an appallingly horrendous and harrowing situation that even adults would have problems meandering through. There would always be a ghastly scene in these movies, usually of body horror nature, that would leave a scar in my memory. In Talk to Me, the young characters would be accountable for their tomfoolery, messing with the unknown, and understandably would be at the brunt of the physical harms coming their way. In Bring Her Back, the Philippous upped their ante with the visceral orchestration coming from the mind of Danny Philippou and Billy Heinzman, demonstrating the fact that it was always smarter to be wary and apprehensive about people who would be wolves in sheep's clothing. The backstory of the siblings were equally harrowing without the directors giving us flashback of what had happened, especially with poor Andy. Young English actor Billy Barrett, grandson of Shaking Stevens, for those who had lived through the 1980s British pop, gave us a stunning showcase of his talent as young Andy, who doubled up as the protector of his sisters and the audience conduit to unravel the sickening truth behind the people who are out to hurt them. Visually impaired Sora Wong assumed the role of Piper, the damsel in distress in the plot, and she was amazing in her first acting performance. The kinship between the siblings felt legitimate, and the camaraderie she struck with Barrett's Andy and the squabblings they had was also very authentic. She also seamlessly portrayed the angst of a young blind girl and the yearning to be accepted by her friends, and in this case, a new mother figure in the form of Laura. Speaking of which, Sally Hawkins, an English actor who effortlessly lit up the screen, be it in Paddington or Woody Allen's Blue Jasmine, and getting her feet wet literally in the horror genre with Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water as the woman who yearned for love and found it with an amphibian man, certainly was a brilliant casting choice in the role of Laura. In a story about grief, none more so than what Laura had to bear with, which led her to her decisions, willingly setting herself as the main antagonist, but it was not hard to sympathize with her and a compulsive desire to commit the abhorrent crimes towards our protagonist and many victims before. I enjoyed the fact that Hawkins' Laura did not hide her intention from the get-go when the siblings reached the house, and she was already plotting and scheming with Andy's mobile phone communication and had done research on Andy's background, like what had happened between him and his deceased father, as well as nitty-gritty like a tendency of violence, as well as bad habits that she could use for her benefits. I would say Hawkins' grandiose antagonistic performance is comparable to Toni Collette's tour de force in Hereditary, juxtaposing between being a cool and collected head for the young ones and listening to the problems, and displaying the cathartic release into a real maniacal performance. This might be a bit spoilery, so fast forward 40 seconds or so, but there was one particular scene at the end when Laura was going to be caught in an act from the social service agency. She knew that there was no way she could worm herself out of it, so she just physically subdued her old friend and colleague in a sobbing mess to let her finish what she wanted to conjure, as she felt her friend would know the long-standing heartaches she was suffering and would want her to be happy even when it was morally wrong and simply illegal. Unlike in Talk to Me, where the scary manifestations came when you least expected it, we have the scary boy here you seen in the trailer called Ollie, who immediately gave the audience the creep by silently standing there and gave the characters his cold stare. Ollie was a boy who Laura had adopted like Piper and Andy, and he seems to be harboring a lot of psychological issues and had problem communicating with people. From the way he mishandled the animals under Laura's possession, something was up with him from the onset. Ollie would be the one dishing out and at the brunt of most of the gut-churning scenes with intense gore, most of which I would never want to revisit, similarly to those scenes that scarred me from Talk to Me and Hereditary. And something synonymous with all these elevated horrors I compared with, there was no desire from the directors to give us, the audience, the source of evil and what had caused the haunting and scares we had seen on the screen. There was that disturbing prologue of the Russian occult group doing the unthinkable and blasphemous, as the title implied. It was a take on Stephen King's Pet Sematary. Itself was mentioned in my review of Osgood Perkins' The Monkey, drew inspiration from W.W. Jacobs' The Monkey's Paw. A mother's grief prompted her to do the unforgivable and the willingness to sacrifice innocent people. There was an emphasis on drawing circles which worked as a spell as well as boundary, and from my own experience doing night explorations, common shapes like circles and crosses do possess some powers in the occult world. Hats off to the Philippou brothers for another spectacular horror feature that delved deep into the human psyche. Bring Her Back was a solid horror movie, but I doubt I would want to revisit again, especially I knew the scars it had inflicted within me. For myself, not anticipating any viscera unravel on screen as compared to a Terrifier which sold on its gimmicks, the cringe was even more impactful. But if you are a true horror fan and enjoyed movies like Hereditary, do not miss this movie and brace for all the emotions through the solid performance from the cast. I am awarding Bring Her Back a solid 8 out of 10. If you have enjoyed my review of this movie, don't forget to catch other reviews I have done earlier. I will appreciate if you can click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. I have a running series known as Asian Trips, where I would review 3 horror movies from the Asian market, most of which I have yet to watch previously. The last one I did was on Taiwan's Them Behind the Door, Hong Kong's Haunted Mansion, and Indonesia's The Haunted Apartment Miss K, all with the theme being stories about haunted apartment or house. Do you guys think the Philippou will come out with another generic name for their next horror offering? Drink Him Dry would be an apt title if they are doing a contemporary vampire feature.